This is North Pod, a North Melbourne fan podcast, hosted by Jason Hunt.
Stevenson with his own moves. Carrington. North are in front.
Welcome back to North Pod. It's episode 31 and we are post AFL trade period. We're heading into late October now, so the season really is done. We've got a week or so of really nothing until the trade period reopens in terms of trading picks and potentially delisting or picking up delisted free agents. So, I mean, look, the season never completely grinds to a halt, but we are certainly in a bit of a lull until the draft in about a month or so. So on today's episode, we're just going to catch up on the last couple of things that happened during the trade period, look ahead to what might happen between now and the draft, and I'm also going to try and have a look at what our best 23 looks like right now before the draft, knowing that, we certainly hope to pick up a player or two that might be in that best 23 come March or April, whatever round one is next year. I'm sure it's March. It'll be late March at some point, I think. And then we'll also have a look at the AFLW match from yesterday, which was a bit disappointing, or at least yesterday as I record this on a Sunday afternoon. We'll try and keep it short and sharp. Not a lot's happened, so should be okay. Let's have a look at what did happen in those last few days of the trade period in terms of the Kangas. So we did end up trading for Biggie Nyuon, signed him across from Richmond, sort of 200-odd centimetre utility, play a bit of defence, could potentially play ruck. I mean, I suppose there's a situation where he could play forward, but I think it's defence that we've picked him up for. He's a speculative pick. He's played one game at Richmond, been on their list for a couple of years, been re-rookied. Yeah, he's certainly less proven than, say, Toby Pink, who have also picked up to potentially bolster the defence. He's only, as I said, played the one game. I haven't seen a whole lot of him, but I've watched a few clips and seen a bit of what he could do. So I think what the club will be looking at with him is that kind of Majak Door potential. He's obviously athletic. He's got height. There's a lot of potential there. It's just whether or not you can actually turn him into a football player that, knows how to play the game and has the appropriate skills. So, yeah, I think whilst Toby Pink probably has less potential, he's at least a proven player at the second level at Sandful in his case. Whereas he's younger. I think he might be 22. He's got athletic potential, but right now you'd probably have to say he's not a better player than Pink. And yeah, and we traded a pick in the 60s for him. I think it was 65. So that was just so that we didn't do any damage to Ben Mackay's free agency compensation. We certainly could have gotten him as a free agent. It just made more sense to trade a pick that we weren't going to use to get him. So got him across, signed him up. All the talk was that was going to happen. So that was the last player that we actually picked up. We didn't do any more business between my last podcast and now except for that. So just added him for that late 60s pick. I think, based on what I know about him, he looks like he'll be a good pickup, but it's the classic. He was what's available. So potential there. He's athletic. He could potentially fit in and play a role similar to what we've seen Majak Door or Lockie Hansen before him play in defence. Or potentially he could be a backup ruck option as well, as we haven't managed to grab one of those mature age rucks really. We've still got Cherry, Free, and potentially CCJ as the rucks. So potentially he also fills that gap. Other list news, we delisted the wonderful trio, Aidan Bonner, Kane Turner, and Jack Marnie. I know there'll be lots of people very upset about that. Yeah, I mean, I was a bit surprised that all three of them went. I was having a look at the list spots we've got available at the moment. I thought potentially one or two of them could stay. But yeah, all gone. And look, there's every chance that we do re-rookie one of them, but the club statements seem to indicate that that wasn't going to happen. That being said, last year it was a similar thing with Kane Turner. We delisted him and then re-rookied him, and we didn't initially say that that was what was going to happen. So anything could happen. I think of the three, Turner's obviously the most proven, but I'd say Bonner would be the one that's maybe most likely to get a sneaky chance, but it seems as though it's not going to happen. And yeah, I mean, I just want to take the opportunity to say, I mean, I've certainly ridden Kane Turner hard at times, and I also turned a bit a few times where I went, actually, I don't mind him playing because we didn't have anything else, and that holds true. But, I mean, the guy played 170 odd games for us. He was absolutely a heart and soul player. Like, he got every ounce of himself out of himself. Does that make sense? I don't think so, but he, was not a super skilled footballer. He didn't have height about him. Like, he was just rough as guts and used everything that he could to play for the club. I still remember that final series. I reckon it was 2014 where he came into the side late in the year and made a real impact as a 17, 18-year-old still at school. He was, he's played a few different roles, played as a small forward, played as a pressure small forward, played as a bit of a tagging role. I think, him going out is kind of the changing of that guard between those, list fillers that we've had over the past 5 or so years. I think he's probably one of the last ones to go out, really. So, yeah, farewell to the Sugar Cane. He's certainly been a bit of a fan favourite in that the fans love to hate him. So it'll be interesting to see who picks up that mantle. I think probably Luke McDonald was well on his way this year, but with him as captain, it's a bit more awkward. At least Kane Turner was, seen as maybe the 21st or 22nd best player in the side. But I think similarly, both of them are really well respected internally. You could tell that Kane Turner was super well respected. And I mean, Nick Larkey talked a lot about him on Best and Fairest night. So yeah, I mean, it's always tough saying goodbye to blokes that are good clubmen, but at the end of the day, we're not here to be good blokes. So Turner goes, Bonner goes, Marnie goes. I think Marnie just makes sense. Bonner, to be honest, I think part of it is, he just couldn't get his body right, and the other part is we just couldn't find the right spot for him in the side. I think he was trying to play as that undersized sort of key defender. He came across having played midfield for the GWS Giants, so we just weren't able to use him in the right spots, and his body really let him down. And Marnie, I don't think has the athletic capacity to play AFL football. He's clearly footy smart. I just don't think he has the athletic skills. So we say goodbye to those three, and plenty of list spots to play with at the upcoming drafts. Potentially opportunity to pick up another delisted free agent or two as well. So currently in the draft, we've got picks 2, 3, 15, 17, 18, and 57. So we've got 6 picks. Brady talked about the fact that we're looking currently at taking 5 selections in the draft. So potentially that 57 is one that we won't use if things stay the way that they are. But there's definitely still a chance for us to trade up. I know that a few people thought with those 3D listings, maybe that rules out us trading up, but I just think it means we're trying to really give ourselves flexibility, because let's say, in a world where we were to give up 2, 15 and 18 and that was enough to get pick 1, I don't think it is, but let's just say it is, maybe West Coast are giving us back pick 1, 58 and 81, which they all currently hold. So I have no doubt that if West Coast is happy with what they're getting for pick 1, they'll be happy to throw in those sort of later picks that they're probably not going to use anyway if we want to, fix up our draft selection. So, yeah, I think there's still a chance that we trade up. I think I have absolutely no read on it at all. I've got no idea what we're going to do, but I just don't think those delistings completely rules it out. There's also been some talk that we might trade up to get Geelong's pick 8 because they're a bit skinny at the draft. potentially a 15 or a 17 or an 18 or a combination of those might interest them. So similarly, maybe we give them 15, 17 and a later pick, and they give us a 8 and a couple of later picks. Like, anything can happen there. I think 8 is probably right where I get a bit, nervous about trading up, because 8 will become 10 at the draft. I mean, Jed Walter's going to go to Gold Coast, I think, and then their second academy player sounds like he might go around that 6, 7, 8 kind of mark. So at 10, 11, 12 is where that talent really starts to drop off. I think 8 will become pick 10. I think you'll still get a really good player at pick 10, but after that, according to Kel Toomey at least, it does taper off. So yeah, I'm interested in trading up to pick 8. If we could have 2, 3, and 8, that would be quite the hand. That would end up being 3, 4, and 10, I think at least. Or if we do trade up to 1, you'd think we're going to end up with 1, let's call it 1, 3, and maybe one of those other picks still. So 15, 17, or 18, we'd probably hold on to one of them, you'd think. So look, plenty still to play out. As I said, there's a month till the draft. You can actually trade on the night. So, it's not over till it's over, but I do expect us to make another pitch to West Coast that does involve pick 2 or 3. And I think that's the only time that it's going to become interesting to them, when they're shifting from 1 down to 2. That's when it might appeal to them. We'll talk more about what players we might pick up, I think, closer to the draft. I think I've cooled a little bit on Dan Curtin for a couple of different reasons. But as I said, we'll talk about that as we get closer to the draft. So with that in mind, I thought let's have a look at what that best 23 might look like right now. So pre-draft, with the list that we've got, I actually thought I would do this one off the cuff. Normally I'd prepare it and I just talk through it, but I thought it might be interesting to just kind of go through it together and see what it looks like. So I will post this up on social media afterwards if you want to have a look at it, because I know it can be hard to visualize or to keep track of it in this audio format. So yeah, let's have a look at it. I guess let's start with the back line. I mean, I'll put Sheasel in there for now. I don't know if he's going to play defense next year, but I think it's fair to say he's going to be in the 23. Who else is an absolute certainty? I guess I'll put Logue in, and then maybe we trade him out for someone at the end, because obviously he is in the best 23. He's just not going to be playing round 1. So I guess Logue probably at centre half back there. Who else is an absolute certainty? I mean, Fisher, it sounded like from all the talk and listening to him on trade radio that he's there to play defense and then, push up the ground when needed. So if I've got Fisher off half back, and to be honest, I think if Fisher's off half back, maybe I move Sheasel, but we can do that in a minute. Yeah, look, I think it's Dawson or Pink for that fullback spot. I think I'll put Dawson there just because at least we know he's played for the club. What else? I mean, Core, I think, is going to get a game. He ended the year really well, so if I slot him into the other half-back flank, and then I've got McDonald, Bergman, Goda, Nyuon, Archer. I mean, they're all potentials. I mean, I actually think Pink probably plays, but we'll circle back to that. Look, I have to put McDonald in because he's the captain. So far, that back six, what it looks like is Sheasel, Dawson, McDonald, Core, Logue, Fisher. And I mean, look, Bergman or Goda are going to be in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move Sheasel to half forward. And then I'm going to put Goda in at the back pocket because I think that's more likely. I think Sheasel's going to move forward. Just a prediction. I've got no intel. I think the wings is pretty straightforward. So it's going to be Bailey Scott on one wing, and it's going to be, where is he? I've just got to find him. Dylan Stevens on the other wing. I think that's pretty clear. That's what it's going to look like. Maybe we'll come back to that centre position because it kind of goes with the midfielders. So if we look at the forward line, again, same philosophy. Let's do the obvious. So Larky's going to be at full forward. So that's Pretty easy one. What else do we have here as an absolute certainty? Jury, George, Harvey. I mean, Paul Curtis, I think, is probably pretty. Zerha, here's a certainty. So Zerha in a forward pocket. I think Comben, if he's fit, I think he's playing centre half forward. So I'll chuck him there. Then it gets a bit tricky. So I've got Sheasel, Comben, Larky, Zerha. I think I'm going to put Taron Thomas in there on a half forward. Obviously, he's going to play midfield time, but let's put him on a half forward line for now because he's going to play. What else? Drury, George, Hanson Jr. I mean, I do think Paul Curtis is in there, which doesn't give me any room at the moment for Eddie Ford or for Jaden Stevenson, which is interesting. I think let's, as I said, I'm changing as I go. So let's put Stevenson in where I had Taron Thomas, and let's put Taron Thomas in that centre position. So just to review what I've got so far, because I've kind of done the lines except for the midfield. I've got full back line, Goda, Dawson, McDonald. I've got a half back line, Core, Logue, Fisher. Across the centre line, Bailey Scott, Taron Thomas, Dylan Stevens. And then across the half forward line, Harry Sheasel, Charlie Comben, Jaden Stevenson. And then full forward line, Paul Curtis, Nick Larkey, Cam Zerha. Okay, so then in the ruck, I mean, I find it hard to believe that Cherry doesn't start in the ruck, at this point at least. And then, I mean, look, Jai Simpkins going to be there. He's the other captain, so if I put him there, we've got Ward. I think Wardlaw goes in there with him. So Cherry, Simpkin, Wardlaw, Taron Thomas, I've got at that first centre bounce. And then we've got to pick some interchange. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a defender. So Bergman, I think, would be on the bench. I think in terms of a forward that might be on the bench, I mean, I've got no idea about Braden George at the moment. He hasn't played footy. I suspect he'll play VFL next year first. So let's assume that to be the case. I think I'll put Eddie Ford on the bench. And then, this is where it gets tricky. So there's definitely going to be, I haven't even got LDU in there. LDU's in the side. That's crazy. That is, I don't know how I've forgotten him. So we'll put him on the interchange, whatever. That's offensive to LDU, but we can fix that in a minute. He's definitely in. And then, I mean, Phillips, Powell. I think I have to put CCJ in. So that's going to leave me with Phillips or Powell for the sub role and whatever. It doesn't matter. Let's say it's Will Phil, but I don't really know. It could be too tall. So I guess what I'm thinking here is, are we going to play Cherry, Larky, Comben, CCJ? We did once this year against Melbourne. We got belted and Comben broke his leg, so to speak. I think CCJ is the backup ruck and Comben doesn't play ruck at all. And to be honest, I think Cherry rucks 70 or 80% of the game, and then the rest of the game is on the bench. I think CCJ rucks that remainder, so 20 or 30%, and then he spends, 50% of the game, 60% of the game in the forward line, and then the rest of it on the bench. It just could be too tall, but I'm going to go with that for now. So I'd say that Archer's unlucky. Biggie Nyuon, it's just really hard to have a read on him, I guess, at this stage. Hamish Free is going to be in the VFL. Lazaro, Powell, Tucker, Greenwood. Shields is probably a good chance to get a game. As I said, Braden George, I think he has to start in the VFL. Hanson Jr. wasn't great last year. Cooper Harvey was okay. Curtis Taylor, I think, gets squeezed out. You can tell that, this list is just so much stronger in theory and on paper than we were a couple of years ago. It is actually hard to slot them in. So just circling back, I think obviously Logue's not going to be fit for round one. So I'll put in Toby Pink for him there at centre half back because that's what it will be. I think it will be Dawson, Pink and Core as kind of the 1, 2, 3 tools there. And I can't have LDU on the bench. That's offensive. So am going to make some changes here. I'll put LDU in the centre line, and I'll put Taron Thomas at half forward, and I will put Jaden Stevenson on the bench, I think. So, just to go through it one more time and kind of justify my thinking, I don't feel committed to this, by the way. It's just what I think right now. So, Goda, Dawson, and McDonald full back line. I think Goda's going to get some games. I think we need his ball movement. He's got a bit of height. It's not small, and I think he's ready to play sort of 20 games this year. I think Callum Dawson with Logue's injury will get a go. I can't fathom Pink and Biggie Nyuon coming in and taking that spot from him straight away. So I think Dawson gets a chance. And I think he deserves it. Luke McDonald currently is our co-captain. I can't foresee a situation that he's not playing, so I've put him in that back pocket, and I think he could play a floating role, hopefully maybe more of the sort of role that Jack Zeeble played this year, because I don't think that lockdown role suits him anymore, in the back line at least. Half back line, Core, Pink, Fisher. So both Core and Fisher are able to move the ball. They're both good kicks. Core's obviously able to play that third tall, and if he could recapture that form that he had for the last sort of 2.5 months of this season, I think he can play some good footy for us for the next 3 or 4 years. So he stays there. I think Pink gets in because Logue's out, and we know that he's coming across from the sandful. I think he might be 25. We just need him to lock down the opposition centre half back or full back, whichever. I don't know which of Dawson and Pink are better suited to those spots, but maybe Pink's the deeper player. I'm not sure. We've seen so little of both of them, but I think that's what it could look like round one. And then obviously we've got Zach Fisher in to move that ball off half back, and I think that's where he'll start. The centre line is pretty straightforward. Bailey Scott, he's been top 3 in the best and fairest the last 2 years. He's not going to move from that wing. LDU is our best midfielder, our best pure midfielder, I think. So he'll be there at that first stoppage. And Dylan Stephens we've brought in. I don't feel certain that he is a best 23 player yet. I think that's to be seen, but I think he'll be given the chance in round one on that other wing. So I think that's what that looks like. Half forward line. I mean, I'm not certain that Harry Sheezel's going to go forward. I don't think he has to, for what it's worth. I know that we drafted him there, and I think there's a feeling of like we've got to get in there. He played a best and fairest year in defence, so I don't have a problem with him staying in defence. I guess the concern is if he's back there, we're probably not getting time into, say, Goda, Bergman, those types of players, or Jackson Archer. So, yeah, I think Sheezel, let's move him forward. Combin, we need to see what he looks like at centre-half forward. I don't want to see him in the ruck given the injuries he's had. But, I mean, yeah, that's going to depend on whether Coleman Jones gets in or not. Because, I think Coleman Jones is definitely better suited to be that backup ruck. I think there's even a case for him being a primary ruck, depending on how Cherry goes. But, yeah, I think Coleman plays, and hopefully he can stay on the park. And then Taron Thomas off the half-forward line, I don't think we need to swing him into the half-back anymore. There was talk of doing that this year. I think he's a 50% forward, 50% mid, possibly spending more time in the midfield. It probably just depends what the midfield balance is around him. Full forward line, Paul Curtis, Nick Larkey, Cam Zerha. I mean, yeah, what do we say here? Larkey kicked 70 goals. He's obviously the deepest forward for me. I think he looks best when he doesn't move further than about 70 metres out from our goal. Paul Curtis is the closest thing that we have to a small forward at the moment, unless Harry Sheezel counts. And then Cam Zerha comes back and he's, hopefully a bit fitter. Maybe he can play a bit more midfield time, but he is that hybrid sort of plays as a third tall, but also as a bit of a crummer. Yeah, he's obviously in our best 23, Cam Zerha. In the ruck, Tristan Sherry will get first crack at it for sure, and I think we need to see. Hopefully, he can play 20 odd games this year, and we can see if it's going to work with Shistrin. I know there's a lot of people that don't rate him. I know Josh from the Further North podcast can't stand him, and a few other high-profile North Melbourne supporters are not the biggest fans, but Ruckman take a while, and he has not played many games of AFL football, so I think he'll get his chance. Simkin and Wardlaw at his feet. Obviously, Wardlaw looked amazing in the few games that he played this year, and whilst I think Simkin might get pushed out a little of the centre bounces, obviously he's still a midfielder. He's the captain. He'll be in there, and I think when he's fit, he had some injury issues this year. I think we've kind of forgotten that he won the two previous best and fairest, and whilst he may have been lucky to win one of them, he is a jet. So I'm looking forward to him getting back to his sort of dancing footwork best in the middle. Then this is where I get pretty uncertain. So even looking at it, I go, it seems like an unlikely mix there because we don't actually have a midfielder on the interchange. Currently, it's Bergman, Ford, Stevenson, Coleman, Jones on the interchange, and Phillips as the sub. I think I'm just going to make a change even as I'm talking, and I'm going to take Ford out and make him the sub and put Will Phillips in, just because, as I said, I don't really even have a midfielder there. Like, Ford could play wing. Okay, so if it's Bergman, Phillips, Stevenson, Coleman, Jones on the bench, look, I don't think that's what it will be. I think Liam Shields is probably a good shout to be on the pitch. Darcy Tucker, Tom Powell, and all of those are a good chance to be on the pitch. But anyway, Bergman, similar to Josh Goda, will get his chances next year. Will Phil, I think, needs to have a breakout year and try and solidify his spot in that best 23. Jaden Stevenson is, hopefully going to kick some more goals. He had a good first half of the year, and then that middle part, I thought he really was up and down, and he finished pretty strongly. Coleman Jones is really similar to Coleman. We've got to hope that he can break that injury curse and stay fit and look good on the field. And then, Eddie Ford's just, as I said, we are actually in a position now where it's hard to pick that best 23. So he will play footy next year for sure, but I've got him as that 23rd player at the moment. And he's pretty flexible. He can play that high half forward. He can play wing. We saw him play a sort of defensive role in the half forward line as well. So that's what I'm thinking. It could be, but we know looking at our draft hand, as it stands, we've got picks 2 and 3. And, generally players that you pick at that level, particularly if they're midfielders, are a good chance to get in for round 1. So I have no idea who we're going to pick, but if we've got up to pick 1, you'd think Harley Reid starts. If we picked Zane Dersma, you'd think he would start. So, potentially, and who knows, but potentially we've got a couple of spots that we're even going to have to squeeze out for a draftee. So, I'd be looking at Bergman or Ford or Phillips that could be squeezed out by one or two of those draftees. And as I said, Liam Shields has been selected to play. Selected to go around again. I'm hoping that he is there to be a bit of depth if we get hit with injuries. But yeah, look, who knows? He could be there for more than that. So that's what I think it looks like at the moment. We have a really inexperienced list now. I was looking at something where if you took out Liam Shields, we don't have a 200-game player on the list. So even the likes of, McDonald, who's been around for a while, has not played 200 games of footy. So, it's a really young list, and there's every chance that next year is not much better, I think, just because of how young it is. But I do think there is, by the same token, every chance that 2025 we make a significant improvement. And look, who knows what 2025 and significant improvement looks like. Who knows what next year looks like? We haven't even got through the draft. We don't know what the rest of the makeup of the squad is, because there's potentially still 9 players that we could add in terms of the draft, the rookie draft, all of those sorts of things. I don't think we'll take in 46. I think we'd probably take in 44 or 45. Give ourselves some room for the mid-season rookie draft next year potentially. But yeah, there's plenty of water to go under the bridge, I guess is what I'm saying. And we've got a really young list. We've turned over those players like Cunnington, Zeeble, Hall, those older players, Goldstein. So yeah, it's exciting, but it's a young list. And if you take out Liam Shields, we do not have a 200 gamer. So anyway, as I said, I will post my first go at that best 23 up on the socials, so you can feel free to tear it apart. As I said, there's plenty that I'm still arguing with in my head. Like, I don't know if CCJ and Common both play, for example. But plenty to play out. The preseason will tell us a lot, I think. And I'm still looking at that list. Like Braden George, we've got no idea what sort of player he's going to be at AFL level yet. We hear that he's been tearing it up at training, but who knows? So that does it for the AFL men's focus. The only other thing that I want to mention was the AFLW update. So we unfortunately had a loss to Melbourne last night. It was a big game. I thought we started well, which has been an issue for us. Got out of the blocks okay, kicked the first goal, but yeah, only kicked 2 for the game, and it was just really hard to transition the ball. After half time in particular, Melbourne was able to kick away late and put us away. So making the top 2 is going to be pretty tricky now, given that we've got the Crows this coming week, who are currently first, or are they second? I'll check that and get back to you, but they're certainly first or second. So that's going to be a tough matchup. We do end the season with an absolute gimme, but yeah, I just feel like we're going to have to win both to finish in that top 2. So anyway, that's where it sits. The Crows are second, Melbourne, who beat us, are first, and then we finished the season against the winless Western Bulldogs. So yeah, it's tough to see where we're going to be able to break into this really tight top 2 or even 3. I think we weren't able to beat Brisbane earlier in the year. They're equal on points with us. But behind us on percentage. I do think we're probably the 4th best or 3rd best side, just based on what I've been watching. But anything can happen in finals. It would be great if we could beat Adelaide this coming week, just to kind of prove a point that we can match it with those better sides. But we just didn't look like scoring in that second half. So yeah, look, we'll see what happens there. We've got a couple of games left, and then it's finals. So that'll come to a crescendo in the coming weeks, and we can see what finals looks like for North Melbourne then. So keep an eye on that AFLW side. That is really all I wanted to say. We'll see. I might take a couple of weeks off from the podcast, given there's really not going to be much news. We'll see how we go. I might do one in between now and the draft as a bit of a filler, but I'm pretty burnt out. So we'll see how we go. Let me know if there is something specific that you would like to chat about, or for me to chat about on the podcast. Otherwise, I will definitely be back before the draft, looking at sort of what we might do and that kind of thing. Hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful week, and we'll speak soon. Go North. Thanks for listening to another episode of North Pod. Please subscribe to the podcast on your app and give me a rating or a review if you can. I'd really appreciate it. You can find me on all social media at North Pod Show. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Threads, you name it, I'm there. I'll see you next episode.